All right, so the next part of notes, and this is really the last thing we're going to learn in this unit, is how to write a linear inequality from a graph. So what you just practiced was given an inequality, we can graph it just like we would a line, but since it's an inequality, there are a couple different things that we have to factor in. But then, just like we learned how to write equations from a graph, we can write an inequality from a graph. So it's a very similar process, which is good for us. So we're just going to have to apply a couple new things. So first, we want to find the y-intercept. And so remember, that's the b value in the point 0b. So we're looking for our b value, just like we would with an equation. Next, we want to find the slope. Again, just like we would with an equation, you can just pick 2 points that are on the line, use rise over run, and get your slope. And then the last thing you want to do is figure out what the inequality symbol is that we will use when we write the inequality. So the way I like to do these problems is I'll start to pull apart the graph just as if it were just a line, if I'm just looking at the line, but I'll leave a box where the equal sign would go because I don't know what the inequality symbol is yet. And then once I have filled in this other information, once I have my slope, once I have my y-intercept, then I'll look at the graph and then I'll start to figure out, okay, based on the graph, what inequality symbol is going to go inside the box. So given the graph, the first thing we're going to do is pull out our y-intercept and our slope. So looking at number 1, my y-intercept, just by looking at the graph, I can tell is 0, 2. It's the point right here. And the slope for this graph, if I pick out another point and I figure out my rise over run, for this specific set of points, I'm going to go down 1 and then right 2. So my slope is going to be negative 1/2. So now I can write the inequality, or begin to write the inequality. So I have y, and then I don't know the symbol yet. So I'm going to put a box. And then my slope goes with the x, just like it would if it was an equation. And then my y-intercept value comes at the end of the equation, or inequality, I suppose. So now we're here, and I can use the trick of, well, since I'm in slope-intercept form, I know that if I want to shade below the line, then y is less than everything else. And if I want to shade above the line, then y is greater than everything else. So we can use that trick only when we're in slope-intercept form, which we are. So if I look at this line, I'm like, oh, well, I see everything is shaded beneath the line. So that means y is less than all this other stuff. And then the only other thing to figure out is, do I have to include the equal to bar, or do I just leave the regular symbol? And that's determined by the line. So if it's a solid line, then we would put that equal to bar underneath. But since we have a dashed line here, I just leave the inequality symbol as it is. So y is less than negative 1/2 x plus 2. That would be my final inequality that represents this graph. Okay? So let's do another one. Look at number 2. So again, I'm looking at this and I'm asking, what's the y-intercept and what is my slope? So y-intercept looks like it is at the point 0, 4. And then my slope, I'm just going to pick out the other intercept since it intersects at a nice spot. And I'll figure out my slope this way. So I go up 4 and right 3. So that's a +4 rise and a +3 run. So my slope is going to be positive 4/3. Okay, now go ahead, pause the video and see if you can write the inequality. Once you think you have it, unpause and see if it matches up with mine. Okay, so I wrote my inequality. So the slope goes with my x, 4/3, and then my +4, that's just the y-intercept value. And then I looked at the line and I saw that everything was shaded above the line. So because I'm in slope-intercept form, that means I use the greater than symbol. Y is greater than all of this stuff. And since it's a solid line, I used a line underneath. So greater than or equal to. Okay, so I can box that up. And we're on to problem 3. So for this one, I look and what is my y-intercept here? Well, it looks like it's right at the origin. So the y-intercept in this case is 0, 0. And my slope, this one's a little harder to pick out points. I know that 0, 0 is a point, and it looks like this is also a point. So I'm going down 1, 2, 3, and right 2. So that is -3 for a rise and +2 for the run. So I have the information I need. So now to start the inequality, I attach my slope number to the x variable, and then my y-intercept is 0. So if you want, you can write +0. I'm not going to because it's unnecessary. It doesn't change the value. And so now we just look at the graph to determine the inequality symbol. So we're in slope-intercept form, and everything is shaded beneath the line. So I know that y has to be less than the other stuff. And because it's a dashed line, it is just less than. It's not less than or equal to. So that would be my final answer. And if you want to write your answers without the box, you can rewrite it if you want to, like this. But for the sake of these notes, if your answers all have the box with it, that's totally fine. Okay, so this brings us to our final problem, and this one is reminiscent of the weird graphs that we talked about a couple weeks ago in our notes. So there's no y-intercept, my slope's undefined, so I can't represent it with a number because it's a vertical line, and on top of that, I can't even determine if it's shaded above or below because that doesn't really apply here. It's like it's shaded left or right. So what do I do with this? Well, first, let's just think about the line that we have, and how would we write an equation for the line? Let's just start there. Well, since it's a vertical line, that means it intersects the x-axis. So this is going to be represented by an equation of x equals some number, and in this case, it's going to equal whatever number is at the point of intersection with the line and the x-axis. So that happens at 2. So if we just wanted to write an equation for the line, we're not even thinking about the inequality part. For the line, that would be x equals 2. So how do I determine what the inequality symbol is going to be? So I need x and 2, and then I need some sort of inequality symbol. What's it going to be? Well, we have two options. We could either use the point test, where I pick a point somewhere. In this case, I'd probably pick 0, 0, and I could plug it in. So if I did that, the point 0, 0, if I want to plug that into my inequality, well, there's no y variable, so I don't even plug in the first, or the 0 that represents y, but x is going to be 0. So I plug in 0 for x, and so then I'm asking myself, what's the relationship between 0 and 2? 0 is definitely not equal to 2. 0 is not greater than 2. So in this case, 0 is less than 2. So 0 less than 2, that's a solution. And so that means wherever this point is in reference to the line that we have, that side of the line is our solution. So what that means is I want x to be less than 2. So I'm going to put a less than symbol. Because we chose a point that was less than 2, or where the x value was less than 2, and it ended up giving us a true inequality, okay? And so because of that, this is a solution, so we want the things that are less than 2. And then the last part to figure out is, well, it's a solid line, so I represent that by saying less than or equal to. I don't know why I chose a different color for that. Let's go back to green. Less than or equal to, okay? So maybe I could rewrite this. So x is less than or equal to 2. That is our inequality. The other way you could think about this is, well, I'm on the x-axis and they shaded everything to the left. Well, x only gets smaller as I go to the left. So x must be less than 2 by that reasoning as well. So you can either pick out a point and test it out, or in this case, you could reason through it a little bit if you wanted to. Okay, that concludes our notes for this unit. I have a brief homework worksheet, and then that's it for the unit.